I'm here to tell you today about things that are happening in the marketplace. I want to really challenge your thinking on traditionally how work is done, how it's done with digital tools, a lot of kind of consumer trends, things that are happening in the marketplace that are coming into the workplace, maybe not now, maybe in a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years, but just really want to challenge how you currently think about how work is done and how you can, a couple of tips and tools on how you can solve information overload. Information overload is really hindering people's productivity. There's been a massive trend, obviously, for a good 5 or 10 years now, of increasing email volumes, not just in your personal life, but in your work life. There's 269 billion emails sent last year, and almost half of that was spam. And those messages, that amount of volume is steadily increasing. So, typically in your work life, the average worker receives or sends around 160 messages a day. So you will receive about 120, and even with a small steady growth of 2, 3, 4, 5%, in 2 years' time, that's going to be 170, 200 messages a day. I'm sure you've all witnessed this phenomenon, but I'm here to tell you it's not going to go away anytime soon either. That's had a massive effect. There's all sorts of things that have affected employee engagement. There's been pretty slow growth in the last 10 years since the recession. There's a lot of different things, political and social, that are now finding their way into the workplace, and people generally aren't that happy. There's a Gallup survey that's done, I think it was 2016, found that 87% of people are not engaged at work. There's no countries are doing great at this. I mean, about the best country in the world is about 4 in 10. It's a stunning amount of wasted potential, people that are not that bothered when they come into the office. These are kind of things that people think about. They're not, they're coming in from 9 till 5, and they've got a lot of potential. There's a lot of things that you can do with that. Even the most performing companies have got about 20 to 30% of employees that are engaged. Your high earners, high growth, enthusiastic, really keen to come into work, energize everyone, and that kind of a great magnifier effect. Even if you just move the needle up to from 15 up to 20, kind of a massive difference in your company. At the top of the Gallup charts, these companies were earning 22% more profits, they're 17% more productive, and saying that's just a small, not everyone that works there is happy either. You can't solve everything, but what I want you to think about is kind of strategies that people are really frustrated with traditional management approaches and traditional way things are done, and that these things are, some of them might sound a bit wacky, but even just moving the needle a little bit and making not everyone, but some people more happy goes a really long way. Some research pulled in from a company called Pew Research. It was just out last week, and there's a phenomenal. I want to go in a good few slides on this, on trends in the modern workplace and how it's affecting people. So they did a survey over the next decade. Overall, how will digital affect how you work, and what do you foresee the kind of general trend? I'm quite optimistic that almost half, 47%, saw that digital tools overall generally have a better, there's more benefit than there is harm. There is a little bit of concern there. There's a third of people are on the negative side, that it's doing more harm than good at the moment. And then 21% is, it's kind of about the same. We're always going to deal with these things. What's the positives? Connection. Finding people that you didn't or hadn't kept in touch with. People that maybe were previously isolated socially are now connected with other people, and you can, really, you can FaceTime your aunt in California or Australia, and really kind of keep that connection going. That's a really, really good thing. The amount of knowledge that's being shared is phenomenal. You can look up on YouTube how to fix a broken dishwasher of some obscure model, and you're pretty much guaranteed to find something there or thereabouts. Maybe not the best business example, but you get the point. Education and entertainment, you can see media pretty much on any device. Commerce, the huge changes that, things like filing your taxes, ordering, shipping, logistics, ordering a taxi, has radically changed over the last few years. And there's bits and pieces of those kind of types of technology will make their way into the workplace. Intelligence and continual improvement, so that always trying to do things faster and continually improve things and make them better, and all those things that are happening in the digital world, again, affect things like, you see difference in health services, just ordering prescriptions, and these kind of types of things are starting to come into your real life. And contentment, people find forums and conversations and threads and political interests that, you can connect with people, or even just if you read a book, connect with a guy on Twitter and say, thanks, that was a great book, and quite often they respond, and you can connect with people that you've never spoken with before. And I think there's a lot of huge positives there to take from that. On the downside, certainly, in the last couple of weeks with the Facebook Cambridge Analytica type thing, that people are now acutely aware of the privacy and how that how it affects elections, and hey, it's no great surprise if I like fast cars and hot women, and I can be pretty easily marketed to that. You can kind of tell. That was just an example. You can kind of tell what my interests are, and maybe what football teams are political. That Facebook has a massive amount of data in there that yes, you can connect with those people, but there's a little bit of concern on the privacy side. There's also been some research, a lot of research now. Again, it probably won't surprise you that the use of social and mobile tools and the internet, it's not having a great effect on your cognitive ability, your ability to focus, your ability to connect with people or be empathetic, have a conversation. People's, young kids at school, their ability to learn and analyze a situation where they won't remember facts, because why would I remember that? Because I can Google it. So it changes how they think. Digital addiction. I know I'm very borderline on this, but the tools are actually apps that are infrequently used. They want you to use them more. They just use my app, read my news article, come back again. They're designed around your kind of dopamine, sugar hit, come back and hit me one more time. And all apps they're all vying for your attention with notifications and emails about the notifications. And, while a lot of people might not see any adverse effects with that, there are people that do suffer from digital addiction. The other one about distrust and divisiveness, that it kind of creates a jealousy type, that there's always someone that's got a better life, or is doing something more exciting, or has got a better jacket or a new pair of shoes. There's a little bit of fear of missing out, FOMO, as it's called. So there's always some, which again creates a little bit of, how would you say, it's a little bit of a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of depression, that are continual and constant reminders that there's other people doing things, and you need to kind of step back a little. So that's the kind of the danger side of it, that people are also looking into the effects that it's had on the democracy, the effects that it's had on security and privacy, and behaviours are changing. But how can we remedy that? I always prefer to look on the positive side. There's things that can be done about that. We can take the good bits of it, reimagine those systems, how technology can be used for good. Things like artificial intelligence and self-driving cars. Quite scary statistic that in the next 10 years, they reckon in America that 60% of the working population drive a car for a living. Truck drivers, delivery drivers, and with autonomous vehicles, all those jobs will be gone. But again, on the flip side of that, the artificial intelligence, VR, you're looking at, things like radiology. How can you scan an X-ray picture? Well, a computer can analyse, 400,000 patterns in seconds, whereas if you're a doctor and you're a little bit tired, you might not be quite so accurate. So there's things like that, taking the good parts of it can have huge benefits from a health point of view as well. Regulation, obviously we'll start to see a little bit more of that with the impact of Facebook, whether Mark Zuckerberg turns up for Parliament or not. Another positive side of things, re-educating people about digital, that it's, the grass isn't always greener, and that's how they portray themselves, and, teaching older people and younger people the effects of digital. But things like this have been, historically, there's always been good and bad side. I think we're at the very, very early stage of digital and social. Facebook's maybe around 10, 12 years type thing, but it's only now that it's starting. You're starting to see the behaviour changes and the kind of long-term effects. But things like the printing press had half a century of chaos, and don't think we'll quite go there. But again, it's taking the good out of that, being mindful of it, but taking the good with the effects that digital has on change. Again, some more studies here, but just kind of probably things that you kind of realise yourself, but it's now being backed up by research that's been carried over for a few years and is now basically kind of confirming what we already knew, that constantly checking electronic devices causes stress and anxiety, and there's record number of students now reporting stress and emotional disorders. There's also another study here that said, the amount of overwhelmed that students are being now is now up to 41%, which is quite scary. Again, as people are looking to do things about that, people from Facebook and Apple and Google have moved away from that model, and they know what the model was predicated on. So, there's now movements to stop, let's, switch your phone off, have days off, digital detox type thing. So we're now kind of, these things will start to seep into the kind of, the bad news that we've had recently. These apps are designed to trigger you to remember to come back and check the app. Being aware of that and seeing, the alert notification or the email, or, do you know what? I'm not going to contribute to the let's see if who can get the most followers in the company type thing, taking yourself away from that. Again, feeding on that dopamine sugar-based hit, these are, you're basically fighting against your DNA not to click that notification. It's not easy. I'm not saying that I'm cured either, but I am aware of it. This is what I wanted to highlight with this was, around Facebook, is that, they're in control of the algorithm. This is kind of where it's all falling down, I think, for them, aside from the privacy. It's basically one algorithm or one person is deciding what you read. Previously, that was, media corporations would decide what the message was. Now it's all in the hands of who can spend the most money deciding what you read. Hitting on the kind of emotion side, it is very difficult. You've got 24/7, you've got a mobile device that's designed to keep nagging you for your attention. And how have anyone in the room had these kind of discussions in the workplace so far, or are seeing symptoms of it? A few nods, a few maybe not yet. But another kind of thing I wanted to highlight was I'm very focused on the kind of productivity. I really get distracted a lot. I use my headphones all the time. But on a kind of personal level, it's managing the interruptions. So I work from home a lot, so it's taken at least 5 years to stop, for my wife and family to get used to, look, I'm working from home, do not come and interrupt me. Oh, there's a parcel arrived, that's great. Do you want a cup of tea? No thanks. Can you leave me alone now for, at least 2 or 3 hours, It's just that mental, again, trigger, whether it's an alert for an email notification or a phone call, but getting back into concentrating. And there's some apps, you can literally shut down and say, do not let me open Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and just let me, I've got this presentation to do, I'm going to focus and shut out all, put your phone on airplane mode, shut it all out. Email, going on to tools and how they work. The email inbox, I want to think about that a little bit differently. What do you think the email inbox is there for? No one? That's basically what everyone else wants you to do. That's their priority. Going back to that, you receive 120 messages and you send 40, so you've got 20 to 30 requests waiting to come back. That's the ones that you care about. It's not the floods of ones coming in from everyone else. The other thing, if you heard this, social media, it's a bit like trying to drink from a fire hose. And where that, once you start to see these kind of Facebook and Twitter and open communication platforms come into the workplace, and even also an email, not everyone is reading your message. They've already got 200 notifications, and just because you said, John, can you please do that for Wednesday, there's no guarantee that he's going to see that or read that. So it's kind of anticipating these behaviours that there's a challenge coming. Emails are getting more. If you bring social tools and open tools, it's more messages and more notifications and more vying for attention. With that comes a lot of distraction, and it's that continual interruption for your attention. Again, kind of looking at what the tools do, here's what they sell. This is why it gets you hooked. Here's someone that's fitter or faster or, hit a better golf shot than I can, or, that's what keeps you coming back. And it's that refresh of, okay, I've read stuff. Can you give me some more new stuff that I've not seen before? If you want a good argument, go to Twitter. I'm a huge fan of Twitter. I love Twitter for things like this. I follow a lot of people that go to events and conferences. And you can see what they're up to, and I can find the latest research. It's way ahead of the market for that, but it's quite easy to get into an argument. And, they do know a lot about you. what I wanted to highlight was one of the really positive things that I've done recently was a thing called Working Out Loud. There's a chap, John Stepper, has wrote a book, workingoutloud.com, and it's really about a little bit about the psychology, but about the networking, being open, publishing your work, publishing blogs. I know most people won't have done that before, but sharing what you're doing way before it's finished, and people will then connect with you. And typically it puts together a group of 6 to 10 people, completely random, completely different backgrounds. But what you get from it, it's a phenomenal thing of being open and vulnerable and sharing what you're doing in a public way. And I'd highly suggest, following this. The German market has really latched onto this. They're completely agnostic and hate social networking and the workplace and want to ban it in all forms. They've got a huge trade union that blocks all this. Even that aside, there's lots of German companies, engineering, traditional car manufacturers that are embracing working out loud to get employees to connect and work with each other in a completely different way. I'd highly recommend checking that out. Anyone recognise this? So again, the other thing now coming into the workplace, not just your email notifications, but on your phone, for your apps, and those emails about the app, about the notification on the app. I've went through a kind of radical step over the last couple of months where there's only one app, or two, my phone app, so if my wife phones, not many people phone me anymore, and my to-do list, and I'm very much, there's another notification, so I've turned them all off, and the only ones I focus on is my to-do list, and that just reminds me to get, again, focusing on what I want to do and not what other people want me to do. I said, there's other tools that are making their way into the workplace, things like, you've got email, but you're now getting Facebook and Yammer, Twitter type style. But these style of application, you get the message from someone that you don't care about, there's a joke that you don't care, you go through all these messages, and it usually takes you quite a while to find the one that you're, that's quite interesting, eventually. So there's tools out there, Yammer, Facebook, I've got one, Jive, Salesforce, IBM. But again, that's what everyone else is, look at me, I've done this, look at me, I've done that. It's not about what you want to do and being productive. Again, back to the kind of fire hose thing, it's just that constant stream of messages that go on forever. Infinite scrolling. And the strange thing is about the workplace, even with emails, everyone, if I sent a boring email to all of you, you would all read it. So that, why is everyone in your company reading all the boring emails and then getting to the point where, right, that's me, read all my emails, it's lunchtime. Now I'll have a couple of meetings, and what did you actually do today? I just read a lot of messages, but everyone's reading the same ones on an infinite loop. The other thing that's now on the marketplace as well, things like Slack and HipChat, if you've not heard of them, very similar to WhatsApp type, a group-style approach. Fantastic. Slack has got a great user experience, really great product, but only really good when you get to about 6 or 8 people. More than that, it becomes a complete nightmare. We get a lot of people coming to us. So, it's almost like having all of your company in a meeting talking about anything all day with no agenda. You very, very quickly, and you get, a question up here and then a different question here and a different answer to a question 3 pages ago. So again, one of my favourite things from Twitter, Slack is immensely popular. I mean, it's a huge company. Again, they went to a conference. I think whether there was a few hundred or a few thousand delegates, the fact remains, everyone uses it. and this was in New York, but 0 hands, 0, for an improvement in productivity, which I find very amusing. There's also, it kind of links back into, there's some New York articles about FOMO. And these group chats it's not a fear of missing out that people are doing better things, but you have to read every single message before you say, oh, well, I didn't need to read all of those. So it's not, those kind of style of apps, to me, are just addressing the wrong problem. Again, there's links in my slide, but you can see about this in more detail, about how people love it and are now starting to fall out with it. There's coming a bit of a backlash that group chat, people are realizing it's not really adding anything to my productivity. But when you look at what you actually do in your working day, so this is an IDC and McKinsey, 28% of your day was spent on email, 33% is spent looking for answers, expertise, and decisions. Who do I speak to? Do you know someone that knows this? Should we buy HP or Dell or Apple, or finding out answers and decisions. And then once you've done all that, 39% doing your actual job. I've also worked at some other companies not too far from here, some large banks, that it was probably about 98.9% looking for information and answers, and literally 0 doing, taking 200 emails home every night. This is where I wanted to challenge you. This is kind of why we've come up with nooQ. People are now moving to, as I said, they're moving to Slack, and they're moving to Yammer, and they're moving to Office 365, and everyone's doing the same thing. But when you step back and look at it and say, what are people doing in work? Yes, they're communicating. Yes, you need some group chat, but you don't need too much. Yes, you need to be able to share ideas. You need to be able to connect with people and find out things that you never knew were possible. So it's time to flip that on its head. The information overload, it's not going away. You just need better tools to actually manage that for you. A little bit of a challenge, but as I said, a lot of people are kind of following along the trend of, yes, we'll just deploy Office 365, and once we get Microsoft Teams, we'll be digital and it'll be great, and then realise that everyone is now even more overloaded than they were in the past. So that leads us on to, I've explained, what other guys are doing. What we call the linear approach, that's where you read every single message, and then you decide that it's not relevant or important. So what we've developed is a visual way. We actually give you a visual heat map of what's important to you. So you have volume controls for people and subjects. So rather than following everyone about every single subject, you can say, Samantha, I'm going to turn you up a little. This morning I want to hear about HR and marketing. So I'll hear from Samantha and HR and marketing, because I only like Samantha and HR. But I don't want to be bombarded about cake sales and charity events. And this is what my focus is. So just show me the things that I'm interested in. If you can imagine, it's a bit like a graphic equalizer, or you turn up and you're in control of what you're interested in, and we'll show you visually what's important, what's getting a lot of heat, what you should be interested in, and what you're missing out on. So it's a centralized communication platform, centralized idea platform. Everyone can share ideas. Going back to the 61% and the 39%, filtering it by, this is news, this has got a different behaviour than ideas, questions. We'll keep group chat off to the side and we won't bombard you. There's taking the good bits of that, there's value in those areas, but just focusing and making you in control of what you see and not everyone else. So this is the design principle for us is that you come into work and you're not spending 10 hours chatting. It's just, here's a picture of what's important. Here, I'm going to set my volumes and I'm going to say I'm interested in that this morning, blah, blah, blah. Job done. Not hours and hours, just here's a picture, reply, comment, like, upload your file, and then move on. Do other things, do what you're paid to do. You shouldn't be communicating more and more every day. The other thing that we do, against going back to the kind of Yammer and Slack type thing, we get customers coming to, I've got too much noise on there, I've got too much rubbish, too much nonsense. So we can sit on top of those platforms, use the volume controls, and you can just see what's important. I know we're a small startup. We won 2 years in a row. There's an event for vendors in this space, including IBM, including Atlassian, that make billion-dollar companies, and we beat all of them to win the product awards 2 years in a row. There's only 4 of us at the time when we won that, so we're now growing. There's some nice, I forgot about that, the nice quote. Because we do it very visually and because it's very different. Someone said that nice thing. Yeah, we are bringing bold and sexy to the enterprise. Not me personally, obviously. The software's sexy. So it is about that radical performance gain. You shouldn't be communicating with everyone about everything all the time. Flipping that model on its head to say, do a little bit of communication and then get on with your job. Try and bring some sanity back to the workplace. So I say we're an award-winning tech company based in Scotland. You're in control of your data. It's all secure. So it's not in the US. It's all in the UK and European Union. But looking at that from a different viewpoint, we want to solve information overload. We've been told by numerous customers and investors that it's a new model. I wanted to educate you, and there's different things out there, and you can radically transform your productivity. And in that, I'm going to radically transform even just how we do a meeting, because my presentation is over. I don't want to take up an hour of your time. Just because it's booked for an hour doesn't mean to say we have to take an hour. If there's any more questions, I will open it up to questions, but otherwise, thank you for your time.